He lived in obedience to his Father. And even, just before he died on the cross, he's basically having this conversation in the garden with his Father. Look, Father, I know we've talked about this for centuries, but if there's another way, because from a human point of view, I don't want to go through this pain. Physical pain, separation from you. He's on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? Here's Jesus who lives in total harmony with his Father, separated, because he's taken on the sin of the world. Is there another way? But what does he say? Not my will, yours be done. See, that's the heart of a worshipper. It's like, God, what do you want me to do? I will do it. Now, when I was a kid, I used to think that what God wanted me to do was what I don't want to do. So the will of God was always difficult. Like, the will of God, and I get an awful lot of ideas from this close friend of mine that I've worked with for years. But he often said, the will of God in some circles is like a tightrope. Like you have in a circus. So you walk on this tightrope. This is the will of God. Be careful, you might fall off. And then you're not in the will of God anymore. But he said, no, I think the will of God is much broader than that. You see? And does God have and it's quite a challenge. Does God have a perfect plan for your life? Don't answer. Think about it. Has God got your life entirely mapped out from start to finish? Or does he let you have some say? Does he put something within us that wants to do certain things? Where does what he wants and what he puts within us and gives us a heart to do, where does that come in? How much choice do we have? Theologians disagree on all of that. But I used to avoid going to missionary meetings when I was a kid. When a missionary was in town, I never went to a missionary because I didn't want God to call me to be a missionary in darkest Africa. So I'd avoid those things. Yes, Lord, speak to me. Tell me what you want me to do, but don't send me to Africa. Because you notice that what you don't want, God is going to ask you to do. So that was the idea that we had. But I don't think God's like that. See, I don't treat my kids like that. And I don't think God treats us like that. But he wants us to be happy servants. His yoke is easy, his burden is light. And I'm just amazed that for the last 40 years I've been able to serve God with music. And that's what I've been able to do. And I actually enjoy doing it. I don't wake up this morning and think, oh no. I'm just loving being here with you guys this morning. And I just hope that, something of what I'm saying will just kind of be an encouragement to you. This is what I suppose what God gave me to do, but actually I love doing it anyway. You see, so I believe what God wants you to do is what you love doing. Some of you will love working with kids. That's what God's called you to do. Some of you will want to be missionaries in other parts of the world. Or missionaries in Canada. Whatever. You see, God puts desires in our hearts. And I wouldn't like to work with kids. It's like, been there, done that. I used to go into schools 20 years ago and take a classroom about this number and talk about how God is real. And we can do that in England. By law, every school in England every day has to have an act of worship. Amen. Which is amazing, isn't it? So, evangelists, that's where I started off. We had a great opportunity to go into schools. I used to go into schools and address the entire school for 10 minutes at the start of the day. The headmaster would do all the notices and he'd say, this is Mr. Richards, he's going to talk to us about God. That's the introduction I get. And then the kids go, oh, boring. And then basically in 10 minutes I had to show them that being a Christian wasn't dull and boring and actually make them laugh. And then maybe they'd come along to some of the concerts we were doing later in the week, and it was just fantastic. But I'm really glad I don't do that now. A few years ago I was down, where was it? Niagara on the lake. Got some friends down there. And they said, no, we'd love you to come to a high school and do morning worship. I thought, oh God, I don't want to do that. not teenagers, please. Like, let younger people do it. I just couldn't wait to get it over with, So I woke up in the morning thinking, I don't want to do this. God, take it from me. Oh, I'll do it. I'll serve you. And then I get in there, and like, to use an expression we're all familiar with, God showed up. Well, actually, God challenged me. It's like, no, you've got a chance to share something about me with these kids. And in talking to these kids afterwards, it was like, oh God, I see, yeah, right, okay, yeah, sorry, rebuke. So this is what I should have been delighted to do. But as you change, you go through seasons of your lives, you think, oh, I don't do that anymore, I do this now. And you'll find that. God just takes you on this journey. But obedience is like, what are we made to do? And God's not going to make you unwilling slaves. So let's open up our hearts and say, God, here I am. I will serve you. Here I am. And be very careful when you say this. Here I am. Speak to me. Because it'll change your life forever. So, do you really want God to speak to you? But I would encourage you all to do it because it's the only way to live. And then when God says, do something, to do it. Just follow His leading. Do you know that the children of Israel could have got into the promised land very easily? God brought them to a place, they sent the spies in. The spies came back with a report and thought, oh, don't think so. A bit too radical, a bit too risky. And it was only a few days' journey, I think it was, into the promised land. But then they went round in circles for the next 40 years. So God brought them back to the same place where they said yes. Preacher said to Trish and I many years ago, if you say yes to God, you go forward. When you say no to God, you just go around in circles. Until He brings you back to the same point. And you say, okay, now I'll obey you. See, God's God forever. So He doesn't mind if I spend the rest of my life going around in circles. And then when I get to see Him, we go, you could have done so much more, Noel, but you just went around in circles. So, anyway, spend eternity with me, but it could be so much better, you could have much more fun on the planet when you were there, but you just went around in circles. So, listen to what God is saying. Move forward with Him. Don't come to the end of your life and thinking, oh, I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd said yes. Just say yes, and just see where God takes you. Go through the doors that He opens. Do what you see Him doing. Just like Jesus did. The perfect worship. He lived in obedience with His Father. And John 15 verse 10 says, if you obey my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have obeyed my Father's commands and remain in His love. So let's be obedient worshippers this morning. Let's follow the example of our founder, Jesus, of our faith. He says, here I am. And Psalm 22, which is what Jesus was quoting on the cross. Just take a look at Psalm 22 in your own time. It starts off with, my God, why have you forsaken me? And then it goes through all the different things that Jesus was suffering. And it comes to the end of Psalm 22.